Hey besties, it's Cam from the internet. Welcome back. It's been a while since I've actually said that phrase. I have been out of commission, kind of by mistake. I had to take some time off during the holidays, and a lot of things have happened. As you can see from the title of this episode, this is quite literally a life update. But my local library also underwent a series of extensive renovations, and it looks fabulous in here. But as some of y'all might remember, this is the space that I do my recording in, and so obviously it's hard to record in a space that is under renovation. So now the renovations are over and here I am. It's great. The space looks awesome. I'm glad my city's investing in public infrastructure and I'm glad to be back. As I said, this is a life update, so let's get cracking. There's a lot of stuff that has happened between the last recording and this recording. First big life update is that I have a job. I finally got a job. I'm very happy. For a little bit of context for those who don't know, because I don't think I've talked about it in like an all-encompassing way, at least not on TikTok, which is where a lot of y'all are coming from, I think. But I had been working as an independent contractor for a good almost 3 years, I would say. I started off doing sort of like freelance PR writing and whatnot when I was in college. And then during the pandemic, when I got laid off due to COVID-19, I started taking it a bit more seriously and became like a full-fledged full-time self-employed person. And that was really great for a while, but as I inched ever closer to 26 and to wanting to make some changes in my life that required more income, I started to look more seriously at full-time employment because here in the US, you are in most cases off of your parents' health insurance when you turn 26. I turned 26 in mid-April. And I could go on the open market as a self-employed person and get health insurance, but it is very expensive and it felt kind of like a waste because my healthcare is not typically covered by insurance anyway. So it's kind of like, why am I doing this when it's not going to do anything for me? But more importantly, I started to miss some elements of working for a company. That sounds really weird, and I know that a lot of people might disagree, but there's just something about working with a team of people. It's not just all on you. You have things you're working toward that are bigger than yourself in a way that you don't always experience in my field as an independent contractor, and all of that sounded really nice. So I ended up finding my niche in the healthcare tech space. I figured that was probably a safe space because, healthcare tech is probably not going to go out of style. There's a lot of arenas of tech that do see a lot of layoffs, but healthcare tech is probably always going to be around because healthcare is such a space that's ever changing. So I felt like my odds were pretty good. The rate of pay is pretty high. And importantly for me, I know a lot about healthcare. Being chronically ill really serves me well in this perspective. I ended up finding a really great company to join, and I started there in the middle-ish of February, and it has been going really well. I will always, I think, have a little bit of anxiety around I don't want my boss to be mad at me. I'm really anxious all the time, but it's getting better and easier. They definitely have really reasonable expectations of someone who's been with the company for less than a month, and that has been kind of healing in a way, so that part's nice. But yeah, I am very, very happy to be at that company and very excited about the job. It is fully remote, 100% work from home. If I do end up close to where their offices are, I'm welcome to come into the office on Wednesdays because that's when a lot of folks in that area are in office on Wednesdays, and that is appealing in some ways. I don't really like getting dressed up in business casual, which again sounds really silly, but I just don't find that clothing comfortable. But it's be nice to go in front of people's faces and, speak with senior leadership in person and all that stuff. But it's a great job. It's equal parts like content writing and project management. And so, yeah, I'm really thankful for that job. So a good portion also of why I was looking for a job in tech and why I was looking for jobs in a certain space is because I was really aware of the income. There has long been this kind of thought in my brain of I would like to make a certain amount of money. And it's not because I think that there's a certain number that I need to be quote unquote successful or whatever, but it's one of those things where I've been around the block enough to know what about my life would be improved if I had a certain amount of money. It wasn't about the number, to say, I make over 100K or whatever. It was more about, okay, this is the amount of money that I think that I needed to, in my case, hardcore address my healthcare stuff. I am still going across the country for healthcare. I'm ramping it up actually because we've found a course of treatment that seems to be doing something about my body. But again, it's really, 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 really expensive. And although I did receive a grant to fund my healthcare up to a certain amount of money, which equal parts I'm very glad that I got this grant, but also how fucked up is it that here in the US we have to apply for grant funding to treat our chronic illnesses? that we were born with that we can't control. Like that just, oh boy, I could do a whole other rant episode about that, but I'm not gonna. Anyway, it's some money, but the money will eventually run out. And being able to have not only the income for my full-time job, but I am also still doing all of the like freelance work that I was doing before. That has not changed. So I technically have two incomes coming in. I will always have my own side business, I've decided, because having like diverse income and having a portfolio of ways to make money. I just got this job. I have an offer in my hand. I signed it and I'm like, here's the amount of money I'm going to be making. And this little voice in the back of my head was like, this is move to California money. So here's roughly how my brain shook this out. While I'm interviewing for these jobs, while I'm looking at the amount of money that I'm going to be making if I get these jobs, I'm doing the calculus. And it became less and less like, okay, here's the amount of money that I would need to live comfortably where I live now. And it started to be, is this move to California money? Is this live near my doctor's money? And that started to freak me out because I have always maintained that living in the area that I live in with the low cost of living relative that there is was my ideal. And that was genuinely how I felt for a really long time. And then all of a sudden my brain just kept like plopping this idea of you could move to California if you wanted. And I was like, I don't know, do I want to do that? So I kind of told myself, if I get this job that I have now, which I genuinely thought was a long shot, I will think about moving to California. And the impetus for that was the calculus. Everything in this life is like time versus money, right? And for me, the money spent and the time spent flying across the country, taking time off of work, spending all this money on flights, when I got this grant that I could be also using to throw at actual healthcare, not the getting to the healthcare, versus living there and being closer to my doctors, not having to fly, not having to spend all that time, not having to like waste my PTO on travel so I could save it for getting sick or, God forbid, an actual like vacation. I have not had a vacation or a break where I've clocked out of work since I was probably 19 years old. And that I think is really, really wearing on me more than I would like to admit. And when I say vacation, I'm not talking about flying some far off location. I'm talking like 3 days off to be at home doing things that are fun. I've never really gotten to do that. Even when I've like gone to California and stayed with my friend and done all this stuff with them, I've still been working because I don't have enough PTO to take it off. And I want to stay there and be present with my friend. So all of this is in my brain and it's like time versus money. And I did the calculus and I decided that it might be worth it to trade time and money for convenience, to be in the location of California, making the money that I'm making, still being able to live comfortably and pay more for medical care and be closer. Like, to me, that felt like a fair trade. And so I started to think about, for the first time, like seriously, potentially moving across the country. So I got the job offer like a month before I was going to start the actual job. So right after I accepted that job offer, I actually ironically had to fly to California to see my doctors. And there was some like shenaniganery that happened that ended in me deciding that I don't want to work with this one doctor, even though I still work with another doctor at that same practice. But I instead wanted to work with the doctors that, let's just say treated me the way that I wanted to be treated, meaning they were treating me like a human being and in ways that I felt respected and heard, whereas another doctor was not really treating me in a way that made me feel heard and respected. The doctor's office policy is, we will not do telehealth with you unless you live in the state of California or you're physically in the state of California. So if I'm staying at my friend's house, I could do telehealth because my physical body is physically in the physical state of California, but I live in Virginia, so that's not possible. And I was like, okay, here's another tally in the column of moving to California. When I was in California in that time, this would have been, I think that it was like the middle of February. Yes, it was the middle of February. I remember now. I started to pay really careful attention to cost. And it helped that I went grocery shopping for my friend's family. I was driving back and forth from different areas that I would have been driving back and forth to anyway if I lived there. I was paying attention to gas prices, gas mileage. The rental car I was driving was a hybrid also, which is helpful because I do drive a hybrid vehicle. So all of that was like, okay, this cost of living is actually fairly reasonable and manageable. Cool, okay. And long story short, I ended up deciding definitively that I am going to move to California. My mother knows this. My sister does not know this. I'm well aware that I have to tell her. I will tell her eventually. I have a plan for this, but right now, there's a lot of stuff that goes into this, and I'm quite frankly not sure I'm emotionally prepared for all that will be unleashed on my family unit when I announce that I'm moving across the country. As of now, I'm looking at moving in the summer, mid-June is when our lease is up, so probably I'll be out of there the beginning of June. I don't know. I have to figure all of that out. It kind of depends on when I go look at apartments next month in April. I'll have to see what's available for move-in and everything. So that will be interesting. But those are the two big updates. I do, however, have some smaller updates that I'm kind of just toying with. One of them being that as of this recording, there is once again a resurgence of conversations around TikTok and whether or not that app is going to be no longer an option for people who live in the United States because, Congress won't let us have nice things. Given that, and also given the fact that I keep making videos that are longer even than 10 minutes, which is the limit that TikTok currently allows, I've kind of started toying with the idea of making like a YouTube channel. I know a lot of TikTokers have done the whole they're on TikTok and then they move to YouTube thing. And I don't know if that's a thing that is feasibly actually for me or if I should perhaps not hop on that particular bandwagon. But a startling number of people have come to me recently and been like, hey, I don't have TikTok or whatever, but people I'm in servers in share your Locked Tomb TikToks and whatever. Have you ever thought about putting them on YouTube? YouTube has a TikTok ripoff thing called YouTube Shorts, but YouTube Shorts videos cap out in length at 60 seconds. And as y'all know, most of my videos are at least 3 minutes. So making a version of them for YouTube, I don't really know what that would look like. Probably just taking the vertical video from TikTok, putting a background on it and slapping it up on the internet. I don't know, but doing something like that, plus maybe making longer form videos would be fun to me anyway. I grew up in the golden era of YouTube. I'm 25. And what I consider the golden era of YouTube was 2010 to 2016, probably. I was 12 to 18. I was there for all the original beauty gurus. I vividly remember Ingrid Nielsen, Miss Glamorazzi's coming out video. I remember all those things with startling clarity because I was the target audience for a lot of them. I'm familiar with the YouTube ecosystem and it would be kind of fun to make longer videos, especially if I'm moving. I could document it quote unquote moving vlog style because I loved watching those when I was younger, but also because it would give me an avenue to, make visual content that's longer than 10 minutes because that's all that TikTok allows. So I don't know if I'm going to do that, but it's something that I'm thinking about. So if it's something that you want and you're listening to this, find me on social media somewhere and tell me because I want to do what the people want. I don't even know if the majority of the people do want me to do YouTube, but I wouldn't be opposed to duplicating my content over there if that was actually of interest. Another thing that I keep thinking about is conventions because every time I do fan conventions and I get to meet some of y'all because you stop by my Artist Alley table, it's always such a blast. So that's awesome. Please keep doing that if you want to. I did a local convention back in January. I'm going to Tidewater Comic-Con in Virginia Beach, Virginia in May. And in August, I'm going to be at FlameCon in New York City. I've always wanted to do a New York City convention, so I'm really excited to actually get to do it. Plus, two of my friends, they're a married couple who run the shop Gay Breakfast. I've talked about them before, but they're going to be there, and their stuff is absolutely amazing. So I'm really excited to get to be in the same space as them and just get to wander over and talk to my friends. That always tickles me. It makes me really happy when I get to do that. So that's exciting. And I have also kind of put feelers out in the convention community in California where I'm going to be because there are some pretty cool conventions that happen in California, and applying is going to be a long shot, and I know that, but I figure it's like the old adage, nothing ventured, nothing gained. So I'm going to venture and see if I can gain something, but we'll see. I'm going to do a separate episode recording about this, I think, because it is something that I've been processing, but I have been doing a lot of work in therapy recently about family dynamics, and that's the only other update I can think of that is a thing that is happening, and by God, does it make me tired, but it's important work to do. It's necessary. So I'm doing it. Might not be happy about it, but I'm doing it. I think that's all the updates. Watch, I'm going to end this recording and edit the audio and then be like, oh, I should have talked about this, but whatever. Thank you for hanging in there with me and bearing with me with the podcast. Thank you for spending your time with me. Every time y'all say that when you listen to the podcast, it gives you a soundtrack for your Friday commute or your weekend cleaning. It always makes me happy. So thank you for sharing your ears with me and your time with me and letting me be a part of your routine in your life. And I don't know, it really warms me to know that people will invite me into their lives like that, even if it's, a pre-recorded podcast on the internet. So I'm very grateful to you all and really thank you for letting me be a part of your life and for supporting me. And yeah, I guess that's it. I will talk to y'all next week. Make good choices, all that good stuff. Don't forget to check the episode description for other places on the internet you can hang out with me. And I will see you in the next episode. Bye.